Why does the Joker captivate us so completely? What is it about this agent of chaos, this clown prince of crime, that keeps us coming back for more? For decades, the Joker has been more than just a villain. He's become a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of anarchy, and a philosophical puzzle that refuses to be solved. From comic book pages to blockbuster films, he challenges everything we think we know about morality, sanity, and the very nature of reality itself. Today, we're diving deep into the twisted mind of one of fiction's most compelling characters to decipher his wildly inconsistent philosophy and understand why his chaos resonates so powerfully with audiences around the world. The Joker didn't start as the complex philosophical figure we know today. When he first appeared in Batman comics in 1940, he was simply a criminal with a clown motif, a gimmick villain among many. But something about that grinning face and unpredictable nature struck a chord. Over the decades, the character evolved, transformed, and deepened. Each new interpretation added layers to his persona, turning him from a simple antagonist into something far more profound. The Joker became a canvas onto which writers, artists, and actors could project their darkest questions about human nature and society. Cesar Romero brought the Joker to life in the 1960s Batman television series with a campy theatrical flair that emphasized the character's playful side. His Joker was mischievous rather than menacing, a prankster who delighted in elaborate schemes. Then came Jack Nicholson in 1989, who added a layer of gangster menace and dark humor, creating a Joker who was both funny and genuinely frightening. Mark Hamill's voice work in Batman, the animated series, gave us perhaps the most balanced portrayal, blending humor with genuine malevolence in a way that influenced an entire generation's understanding of the character. But it was Heath Ledger's 2008 performance in The Dark Knight that revolutionized how we think about the Joker. Ledger's interpretation stripped away the origin story, the explanations, the rationalizations. His Joker was pure chaos, a force of nature with no clear motivation beyond watching the world burn. He wasn't trying to get rich or gain power. He simply wanted to prove that civilization was a thin veneer over humanity's true anarchic nature. This Joker became a philosopher of chaos, articulating a worldview that was both terrifying and strangely compelling. Then Joaquin Phoenix gave us something entirely different in 2019. His Arthur Fleck was a broken man ground down by an uncaring society, someone who transforms into the Joker, not through choice, but through circumstance. Phoenix's portrayal emphasized the tragic origins of chaos, suggesting that monsters aren't born but created by systemic failures and human cruelty. This version asked uncomfortable questions about mental health, social responsibility, and how society treats its most vulnerable members. Each portrayal reveals different facets of the same fractured diamond, showing us that the Joker contains multitudes. At the heart of the Joker's philosophy lies a fundamental belief in chaos as the natural state of existence. Order, he argues, is the illusion. Civilization, morality, social structures, these are all just stories we tell ourselves to feel safe. But underneath, chaos reigns supreme. In The Dark Knight, the Joker explicitly identifies himself as an agent of chaos, someone who introduces a little anarchy to upset the established order. He sees himself not as a criminal, but as a truth-teller, someone brave enough to acknowledge what everyone else denies. This philosophy directly opposes Batman's worldview. Where Batman believes in order, justice, and the possibility of redemption, the Joker sees only randomness and meaninglessness. Batman's entire existence is predicated on the idea that rules matter, that there's a difference between right and wrong, that one person can make a difference through discipline and moral clarity. The Joker finds this hilarious. To him, Batman is the real joke, a man who dresses as a bat and beats up criminals because he can't accept the fundamental absurdity of existence. The philosophical roots of the Joker's worldview run deep. Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning or value, echoes through the Joker's actions and words. Nietzsche wrote about the death of God and the collapse of traditional moral frameworks, leaving humanity adrift in a meaningless universe. The Joker embodies this crisis, living as if all values are arbitrary and all meaning is self-created. He's what happens when someone fully embraces the void and decides to laugh at it. Absurdism, particularly as articulated by Albert Camus, also informs the Joker's philosophy. Camus argued that human beings desperately seek meaning in a universe that offers none, creating an absurd conflict at the heart of existence. The Joker resolves this conflict not through Camus' recommended rebellion or acceptance, but through mockery. If life is absurd, why not embrace the joke? Why not become the punchline? His laughter isn't joy, but recognition of the cosmic absurdity of everything. Existentialism adds another layer to understanding the Joker. Existentialist philosophy emphasizes individual freedom and responsibility that comes with creating one's own meaning. The Joker takes this to its darkest extreme. He's radically free, unbound by social conventions, moral codes, or even consistent self-identity. He creates himself anew in each moment, answerable to nothing and no one. This absolute freedom is both his power and his curse, liberating him from all constraints while also isolating him in a universe of his own making. The Joker's challenge to moral frameworks cuts to the core of ethical philosophy. He doesn't just break rules. He questions why rules exist at all. In various storylines, he forces characters into impossible moral dilemmas, situations where any choice leads to tragedy. The famous ferry scene in The Dark Knight exemplifies this perfectly. Two boats, each loaded with explosives and the detonator for the other boat. Criminals on one, civilians on the other. The Joker's experiment aims to prove that when pushed to extremes, everyone abandons their moral principles. What makes this so unsettling is that the Joker isn't entirely wrong. History shows us that ordinary people can commit extraordinary atrocities under the right circumstances. Social psychology experiments like the Stanford Prison Experiment and Milgram's obedience studies demonstrate how quickly civilized behavior can collapse. The Joker understands this darkness in human nature and delights in exposing it. He's not creating evil, he's revealing what was always there, hidden beneath polite society's surface. The idea that life is a joke, that nothing ultimately matters, can be both liberating and terrifying. Liberation comes from the release of anxiety about meaning and purpose. If nothing matters, then failure doesn't matter. Embarrassment doesn't matter. Social expectations don't matter. You're free to do whatever you want because there are no cosmic consequences. This is the seductive appeal of the Joker's philosophy, the whisper that maybe all our worries and responsibilities are just elaborate pretenses. But this philosophy is also deeply terrifying because it strips away everything that makes life feel worthwhile. Love becomes just chemical reactions. Morality becomes arbitrary preferences. Human connection becomes temporary arrangements between biological machines. The Joker's laughter echoes through this void, mocking anyone who tries to find meaning or purpose. His philosophy offers freedom at the cost of everything that makes freedom valuable. It's a Faustian bargain where you gain the world but lose your soul. In comics like The Killing Joke, the Joker explicitly articulates this worldview. He tries to prove that one bad day can drive anyone insane, that the difference between him and everyone else is just one moment of clarity about how meaningless everything is. He tells Batman that they're not so different, that Batman is also one bad day away from abandoning his moral code and embracing chaos. This is the Joker's ultimate argument. Sanity and morality are just thin ice over an ocean of madness. The Joker functions as a mirror, reflecting society's deepest fears and contradictions back at us. He exposes the hypocrisy of social institutions, the fragility of order, and the darkness lurking in supposedly civilized people. When he appears, he doesn't just threaten physical safety, he threatens our fundamental assumptions about how the world works. He's the return of the repressed, everything society tries to deny or suppress, suddenly given form and voice. Consider how different Joker stories reflect the anxieties of their times. The campy 1960s Joker reflected Cold War-era absurdity and the need for escapism. The 1980s and 1990s versions grew darker as society grappled with rising crime rates and urban decay. Heath Ledger's Joker emerged in a post-9/11 world obsessed with terrorism and the limits of security. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker spoke to contemporary concerns about inequality, mental health, and social fragmentation. The character evolves to mirror whatever society fears most. He exposes how fragile our sense of order really is. We like to think civilization is solid, permanent, inevitable. The Joker demonstrates that it's actually incredibly delicate, maintained only through constant effort and collective agreement. Remove that agreement, introduce a little chaos, and everything falls apart. This is why he's so terrifying to authority figures in Batman stories. He's not trying to replace one order with another. He's trying to prove that order itself is impossible. Yet despite finding him repulsive, audiences are simultaneously fascinated by the Joker. We're drawn to his freedom, his refusal to play by rules, his ability to say and do things we never could. There's something cathartic about watching someone completely reject social constraints, even as we recognize the destruction this causes. The Joker lets us explore our own dark impulses safely from a distance. He's the shadow self we all carry but rarely acknowledge. This brings us to one of the most compelling aspects of the Joker, his fundamental paradox. He's simultaneously calculated and chaotic, methodical and random, tragic and comic. His plans are often elaborate and require careful preparation, yet he claims to be an agent of pure chaos with no plan at all. He's a criminal mastermind who insists he's just a mad dog chasing cars. These contradictions aren't flaws in the character, they're essential to who he is. The Joker is both victim and victimizer. Some versions show him as a failed comedian driven mad by tragedy. Others present him as simply evil, choosing chaos for its own sake. He's sympathetic and monstrous, pitiable and terrifying. We can't pin down his true nature because he doesn't have one. Or rather, his true nature is to have no fixed nature. He's whatever the story needs him to be, whatever will create the most chaos, whatever will best challenge Batman and the audience. This inconsistency extends to his origin story. The Killing Joke famously has the Joker say he prefers his past to be multiple choice. Sometimes he's a failed comedian, sometimes he's a gangster, sometimes he has no origin at all. By refusing a definitive backstory, the Joker remains unknowable, mysterious, impossible to fully understand or predict. This makes him more frightening than villains with clear motivations because we can never be sure what he'll do next or why. The paradox also appears in how he relates to Batman. He claims to want to kill Batman, yet he passes up opportunities to do so. He says Batman completes him, that they need each other. Their relationship is a twisted dance where neither can exist without the other. The Joker needs Batman to give his chaos meaning, to be the straight man to his cosmic joke. Without Batman, the Joker's philosophy has no one to challenge, no order to disrupt, no meaning to mock. This paradoxical nature is precisely what keeps the character compelling across decades and interpretations. If the Joker were simply evil, he'd be boring. If he were simply insane, he'd be predictable. If he were simply tragic, he'd be sympathetic. But he's all of these and none of these, shifting between states like quantum uncertainty. He's Schrodinger's villain, simultaneously every possibility until observed, and even then remaining fundamentally ambiguous. The impossibility of understanding the Joker mirrors the impossibility of fully understanding chaos itself. Chaos theory in mathematics and physics shows us that some systems are inherently unpredictable, sensitive to initial conditions, in ways that make long-term forecasting impossible. The Joker embodies this principle in human form. He's the butterfly whose wings cause hurricanes, the small variable that cascades into catastrophe. You can't predict him because prediction requires pattern, and his pattern is patternlessness. So what have we learned from our journey into the Joker's twisted philosophy? We've seen how this character evolved from simple villain to complex philosophical figure, reflecting society's changing fears and questions. We've explored his worldview of chaos, meaninglessness, and moral relativism, tracing its roots through nihilism, absurdism, and existentialism. We've examined how he challenges our comfortable assumptions about order, morality, and human nature. We've understood the Joker as a mirror, showing us truths we'd rather not see about ourselves and our society. We've grappled with his fundamental paradox, the contradictions that make him impossible to pin down, yet endlessly fascinating. Through all of this, we've discovered that the Joker isn't just a character. He's a question mark, a challenge, a provocation. He asks us what we really believe and why, forcing us to examine the foundations of our moral and social structures. The enduring appeal of the Joker's philosophy lies in its uncomfortable proximity to truth. He's not entirely wrong about chaos, meaninglessness, and the fragility of civilization. These are real philosophical problems that humanity has grappled with for millennia. The Joker takes these problems to their darkest extreme, showing us what happens when someone fully embraces the void. He's a cautionary tale about the dangers of nihilism, but also a reminder that the questions he raises don't have easy answers. Perhaps what the Joker ultimately teaches us is that meaning and order are choices, not givens. They require constant effort, constant renewal, constant commitment. Batman represents this choice, the decision to impose order and meaning on a chaotic universe through sheer force of will. The Joker represents the alternative, the seductive ease of giving up and embracing chaos. The tension between them reflects the tension within each of us, the daily choice between meaning and meaninglessness. In the end, the Joker holds up a cracked mirror to humanity and asks, "What do you see? Do you see the thin veneer of civilization barely containing our savage nature? Or do you see the remarkable achievement of creating meaning and morality in an indifferent universe?" The answer probably lies somewhere between these extremes, in the uncomfortable space where we acknowledge both the darkness and the light within us. The Joker will continue to fascinate us because he embodies questions that never go away. As long as humans wonder about meaning, morality, and the nature of chaos, the Joker will have something to say. His laughter echoes through our cultural consciousness, reminding us that the joke might be on us, but we're the ones who decide whether to laugh along or write a different punchline. That choice, ultimately, is what separates us from him.